Thanks for joining us, folks. Really excited to have everyone join us for another session of Rubrik Zero Labs Cyber Security Decoded. Really excited for today's session for a couple of reasons. We get to talk a little bit about our newest report that we just pushed out. Second reason, I think the much bigger one, I'm really excited for today's guest. It's someone I personally wanted to speak with for years. And so I just want to dive right into it. For those, this is your first time joining us, we really try to focus on areas around the cyber threat landscape, industry responses, and really particularly around the senior leader viewpoint and what we see around that area. Today's guest, let me just hit a couple of quick resume highlights. She has a career that spans 19 years to include both tactical and strategic threat intelligence roles across such organizations as Microsoft, Proofpoint, Nexium, Symantec, SecureWorks, and back in the government in the National Nuclear Security Administration. She is currently the Director of Threat Intelligence Strategy for Microsoft, and as well as those official job roles, she's been named as the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year for last year. Previously, she was the Cybersecurity Spokesperson of the Year in 2021, and she's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, New York Times, and spoke at, a couple of little industry organizations like Black Hat, TechCrunch, B-Sides, and RSA, as well as also hosting her own podcast, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Podcast. I'd really be happy if everyone could help me welcome Sherrod DeGrippo. Thanks for coming to the show.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here. It's great to see you again because I guess last time I saw you was Cyber WorkCon. We had dinner together.
Yeah, that was really neat having that dinner. It was nice to spend some time chatting. And also, it was just neat seeing folks from a lot of different parts of industry just spending time together. I really loved it.
The vibes at Cyber WorkCon are often referred to as immaculate, so makes sense. Everyone has a good time there.
It's pretty great. I give a lot of credit to the organizers and to John Holquist for putting that together. I think they've really built something special that I know I enjoy going to. And I don't know that there's enough of those where people enjoy being at them.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it. I know we're kicking off a new year. There's lots on everyone's mind around resolutions, where are things going. But I'd really like to kind of start with what you focus on, which is around security and the future. One of the things for Rubrik Zero Labs, we recently put out our newest study, and we really focused on future projections. What do we need to do differently a year from now, 5 years from now, based on the threat and risk realities? And I know this is definitely in your wheelhouse over at Microsoft, so I'd be really curious what you see are some of the main areas that Microsoft is looking at taking this obstacle on.
Yeah, I think that there's a foundational point of view that you have to have in security, which is about combining threat intelligence with protection. And I think that that's really the path that we're looking to go down is how do we secure people, inform them, take that information and intelligence and turn it back into better security protections and keep that rolling constantly. That's one of the really difficult things, I think, across any kind of security organization, whether you're at a vendor making products like me, or you're working in a SOC, or you're designing security governance programs, or any of those things, is figuring out how to take the intelligence that you have, which tends to be pretty rich these days. We tend to get quite a lot, and turning that into something that actually ticks the needle up for you in your security posture. That's going to be kind of that golden goose that all of us are going to have to be chasing for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I give Microsoft a lot of credit. Microsoft has spent years rebuilding, some really fundamental architecture things to really increase that telemetry, have a better view on threat, and now these steps around risk. And there's no way we can talk strategy for either Rubrik or Microsoft and not talk AI. I know at Rubrik, we recently launched our first offering, if you will, a part of the product that uses AI directly, even though we've always used it on the back end. And your organization has talked about, in particular, Security CoPilot quite a bit. I'd love to hear what does that actually mean in execution? What would you love to see Security CoPilot bring to this challenge?
CoPilot spreads across just about everything we do, but Security CoPilot is a big flagship for us that I was lucky enough to demo at Ignite. And I am blown away with what CoPilot can do. For example, it can take something like multiple failed logins and alert you to those immediately, and then say to you, I suggest that you take the following steps to resecure this person's account, get them back to a clean state, and per your policy, so CoPilot can understand your internal organization's policy requirements as well, we also are going to force this person to two-factor in for their next 2 or 3 logins. And that's something that we recommend. The CoPilot will actually kind of interact with you and say, this is what your policy is, and this is what my recommendation is, and this is what you should do. And you have the option of having that ride-along security person say to you, this is my recommendation for these activities and behaviors that we're seeing. Something else I love about it, it can read malicious code. And one of the number one things I've heard over decades working with reverse engineers is, I wish I was a better reverse engineer. No matter how skilled, how incredible, how talented, and I've worked with the best of the best reverse engineers in this industry, especially when it comes to malware, they always want to get better. Whether you're a beginner or a super, super, super senior, this is something that CoPilot can help with. It can walk through code for you. It can look at a malicious script, a piece of JavaScript, for example, that maybe someone inadvertently downloaded on their machine. And it can say to you, here's looking at this code, this is what it does, and here's what CoPilot thinks you should do in response. So I like artificial intelligence, but I don't think about it as artificial as much as I do as an accelerant. It's accelerating you. And I think that in security, we should really think about that as acceleration more than artificial. It's going to make things go faster. It's going to make decisions faster. It's going to make code review faster. It's going to make configuration and rollouts faster. And it's going to make adversaries faster. So we have to think about it in terms of not artificialness so much as faster. Everything is going to be faster with all the AI implementations that are coming.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about that viewpoint, because it's largely the same way we approached it when we launched our recent piece around Ruby. And we're talking about different scales. Microsoft and Rubrik are using AI on whole different scales. But fundamentally, we really saw that we had a number of different analytic features. And the problem was each of those features were almost different audiences. And so we just built an AI component that helps say exactly what you're saying. Think about doing this, or here's a recommendation. And we really try to bridge that gap around how you can't know everything. You can't do everything. So how do you provide that actual user the thing that's going to do the most good right now and then speed up that workflow? So very different. I don't want to sit and say Ruby and Security CoPilot are the same things, but it's really interesting to hear that I think both were approached in kind of the fundamental same ways of let's help people. This is really about building better machines to help people make better decisions. And a big part of that is accelerant. Half this game is speed, in my experience.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to get in a little bit of where we're going to maybe disagree. So I'm going to throw out my first professional hot take, and then I'm going to give a question I'm almost positive we're going to disagree on. So my first hot take will be the professional one, and I'm going to stick with the AI theme. Everyone's talking about AI is going to, do this for the bad guys or do this for the good guys and separates those audiences. I actually think that's wrong. I think what AI is going to do is separate inside both of those. There are going to be organizations that figure out how to use AI and those that don't. And that's where the real gap is going to be. And we're going to see that exact same gap on the friendly side as we are on the threat side. And I know that's probably not the way a lot of the media coverage is or the strategic debates, but I think it's going to absolutely separate organizations almost overnight. So that'll be my first hot take. Now let's get into something I've been waiting to ask. I've been waiting years to ask this. I know you've really grown up on the cybercrime side of the house. I've grown up on the nation state espionage side of the house. So what's your favorite threat group and why? And there are wrong answers here. You can get this wrong.
There are wrong answers. I think one of the things that as you probably know, is one of my favorite things to just kind of start useless fights. I'm the person like lobbing bombs at the dinner table in the industry with this is I love to say crimeware is better. And yes, there is an aspect of me trolling people by doing that. I know. But I do think that it's important to have those conversations because it's a really good thought exercise to understand where the TTPs overlap, what's crime doing that, that they've stolen from APT, where are we seeing overlaps? Christopher Glyer from Microsoft at CyberWarCon talked about a threat group that it seems like it's both a nation-sponsored group called Romcom that is also doing ransomware. So I love getting a little bit into trouble. I love crimeware, and I love kind of flexing that crimeware is better. That doesn't mean that I don't recognize the importance of nation-sponsored threat actor groups. Of course I do. I love what's referred to in the Microsoft naming convention as Strawberry Tempest, also referred to as Lapsus. And I think what's fascinating about them, as well as Octo Tempest, which is often referred to as Octopus, or mainly it's UNC 3944, Scattered Spider is another name for them. We've done a lot of publishing on that particular group, but both of them share in common this amazing ability to leverage incredibly creative social engineering with their technical capabilities. And I don't just mean email social engineering. I mean text messages, calling on the phone. They've done some real world things where they've hired people off of the internet to go to physical locations and do reconnaissance and things like that. Those groups are very creative. Many of them, we believe, are native English speakers, so they come from a different background than we typically see crimeware, which is often Eastern European. I like the Tempest groups in general because that's typically going to be crimeware groups. But I think Octo Tempest, probably Strawberry Tempest, they've done a lot of crazy stuff. TA505, of course, is a big favorite. The flashy, crazy crimeware groups, that's what I tend to like. Those are my favorite groups.
Okay, I can't say you're wrong. I can't say you're wrong on those. Those are good answers. My personal favorite, it will always be APT4. Chinese nation state espionage activity. Part of it's just the first group I worked in. It's the old adage about, your first love. And APT4 was very much my first love in the cyber threat space. The other thing I really loved about APT4, it's very much what you're saying. APT4 was never the most complex or highly technical group. They were really, really good at finding the right users to compromise and then just heavily leveraging user access. And they just understood people. And as very much a non-technical person in this space, I came to cyber intelligence via anthropology. I could appreciate what APT4 was doing. And they actually had horrible malware. They often made horrible technical mistakes, but they ran some of the largest, most successful intrusions because they just went after people. And I could get that. I loved that. So hearing why you're going after your favorite cybercrime groups and those things, I can definitely appreciate that. So let me ask you for your first hot take. Let's do your professional hot take, if you don't mind.
Okay, my professional hot take is that, I won't say always, although I guess a hot take should be really extreme, right? Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go extreme. I love it.
Threat models are garbage. Stop. Just stop. Just stop with the threat models. People, come on. I don't want to hear it out of your mouth anymore. Stop it. And I think that really more refers to kind of people saying, well, I have a different threat model than you. It's like, you don't have a threat model at all. Show it to me on a piece of paper. I think that people are just kind of wishing and dreaming when they say threat model, as opposed to actual doing real scientific modeling, really making a threat model. I don't see that anywhere. Certainly not in personal spaces that people like to talk about it, but I really am not seeing it in large organizations where they're making actual threat models. I just am not seeing it. It would be great if people could do that, but I don't want to hear it anymore with your threat model unless you've actually done the work to make a model of your threat landscape, to update it constantly, and are looking at that all the time. Don't talk to me about your threat model. I don't want to hear it.
First of all, I love you went bold with a hot take. I can just hear the internet screaming right now, so I am here for it. I also love it because it reminds me of something that when we first met in person at CyberWarCon, and I want to give a lot of credit to Sandra Joyce. She brought a lot of folks together for dinner and said, "Hey,
she's great.
Yeah, we're leaders in this space. How do we work?" I'm trying to make sure I get her line exactly right, but how do we work as competitors against the actual adversaries? And she brought up things like, can we have a unified threat model? Can we come up with ways where we, as the leaders of these organizations, can leverage our expertise and our seniority, frankly, and help bring things together? So as someone who hates threat models, but was also there and a big part of that discussion and a big part of these future, things that we can do better together, do you think what Sandra was talking about, is that an attainable goal? Can we actually bring these organizations together to work against these threats?
Is that an obtainable goal? I think it comes down to the cynicism of the practitioners. And that's the battle that we fight every day. It's not necessarily the threat actors we're fighting. It's the amount of cynicism and burnout that we have from the best of the best in the industry. So really, we have to say, can we really do it? Can we really come together on aligned threat model practices? Can we really come together on threat actor attribution, frameworks that are unified? Can we really do that? Well, I mean, we have the brains. Do we have the attitude? I think is the question. And so for me, that's a little bit of the struggle, is that sometimes I'm a little too Pollyanna. I know at work. I know at work, my coworkers are like, God, Sherrod, did you grow up in a fairy tale? Why are you always so excited and happy about everything? But I love security. I love intelligence. And I'm a very like, oh, we can do it. We have the best. We're the smartest. We're so great. I know the best people in this industry. And then on the other side of it, I see people who are like, no, I'm not. This is never going to work. So it's going to come down to the attitude. Do we have the aptitude and the capability? Yes. Do we have the good vibes? We're going to have to work on that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is one of those things where it's not, can we technically pull it off? We've, as an industry, have tackled much harder challenges. And I think it goes back to why we picked our favorite groups. These are all people challenges when the day is done. So I think you're totally right. As we're talking about looking forward, another question, I just want to really talk a little bit about something we're talking about here inside of Zero Labs, because I think it's going to mirror to what you're seeing at Microsoft, but I want to really stress test that is, as we look forward, a year, 5 years, and one of the things we talked about in our recent study is we're in the middle of this data explosion. We talk a lot about a data Rubrik, but I think it applies for everything. We're looking at a projected 7x increase in data. We're looking at organizations today struggling to secure, on average, like 25 million sensitive data records. And we're seeing those growth records going to like 175 million in 5 years. And some of the things that we're hearing as we talk about that with CISOs and CIOs is, this is an impossible task. You can't ask a CISO to do this. You just can't. We've got to find ways to get ahead of this. And as I look at a lot of the reporting and the thought leadership coming out of Microsoft and your strategy focus, it seems a lot about that. One of the things I saw in the digital security report was 98% of intrusions that Microsoft saw could be addressed by basic security practices. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, as you look forward, how do we get our arms around what I think our organizations are in agreement on, is that we just can't put the defenders in this position. We've got to find better ways to do this. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, Steve. Like I see that explosion, right, of data and records, and it's kind of this head-to-head race between our ability to rein in and leverage AI with its acceleration capabilities and the amount of data growth that we're dealing with. So I'm going to call out two things that, if you're listening, write them down. Bruce Schneier's It's a Process, Not a Product. That is a seminal essay. It's about 23 years old now, but I reference it just about every day at work. We're looking to create a continued process. There is no end state when we talk about security. There is no, oh, we're done doing security. No, this is a process journey that we're going to be on forever. And if that gives you an existential crisis, message me and I'll help you get through it. But ultimately, we're here to run these processes to make organizations, products, code, networks more secure. That essay will give you a little hope if you're lacking it. And then I also think that our data engineering industry, which I think a lot of us in security don't intersect with them enough. If you want to follow a really good friend of mine, Pedram Naveed, on Twitter, or X as it sort of is called now, he's a data engineer, and he really is a pioneer in the space of doing data engineering and understanding what that kind of new world is. So I think we've got to bring the data engineering community and experts together with those that are doing security processes day in and day out, and come to a place of understanding with this incredible data growth that the data engineers are grappling with as well, and say to them, let's sit side by side and do the security work to secure the data that you're doing your analysis and engineering on. And it's going to have to be, security has to work with everyone. And I think that the data engineering community is one that's going to really help us with this.
Well, I think, first of all, I agree with both of those just completely emphatically. On the second one, that's one of those things that sounds silly, but I learned that the hard way. And I give full credit to Bubbles. We call him Bubbles, but Ben Withnell over at Mandiant and Google Cloud. He's one of the technical directors there, and I'll never forget years ago he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm working with the engineers, and you're working with the teams that are doing service delivery, and we need to present to them what's happening. They're building these features, they're building these tools, and they don't know why." And I didn't think it was a big deal, and I was wrong. We not only did it show them that their work mattered, they actually started, the more we communicated with them, the better products they built, not just for us, but overall. And just everything got better. And that's one of the things that we've really tried to do here at Rubrik as we set up Zero Labs has been, let's not just talk to our main audience, let's talk to all the audiences. And I give full credit to Ben Withnell because I would never have done that. And the second we started doing it, unsolvable problems started getting solvable very quickly. It was just amazing. And all we had to do was talk to each other and just compare notes. So I could not agree more on everything you just said. But I'm told if you're doing this content thing, agreements are boring. So I'm going to do my next hot take. I'm going to do my personal hot take to try to give the people what they want on the internet here. Okay. Mine is going to be, I'm going to go with an animal theme on my personal one. I think birds of prey are the absolute coolest animals, and it's not even close. They get cool talons, they can fly, they can swoop, they can soar. Flip side, I don't want to hear about dolphins anymore. Dolphins are totally overrated. Like, they're cool or whatever, but they're not like birds of prey. So there, I said it.
I mean, and birds of prey, I mean, they have their origins in dinosaurs, right? So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I will agree. I'll do a hot take also. I think donkeys are really cool. Donkeys are my second favorite animal because they're super smart. They're social. They are incredibly sure-footed and can do many, many things that horses cannot do, which makes donkeys the superior equine.
You know what? I'm with you. Donkeys are great. They're super durable. They work with you. Horses, like, you have to keep horses from dying because they're like, so whatever. Like, donkeys just want to do work.
No, a donkey is hardy. All a donkey needs is friendship and like some carrots. They're really good to go. I love a donkey.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I know we're coming up on all the time we've asked you for, but there's two last questions. There's just no way I'm going to let you get out of here without asking. One is something that I know has been a big passion project for you, both on your personal side and professionally, and it's been around bringing underrepresented communities, not just better service, but bringing them into what we're doing because there's a lot of capability there. And I've heard you speak about this again as where you volunteer your own time and where you focus professionally. So I'm really curious and interested in what do you see really works there? Not just the platitudes that we hear corporations give or great ideas. Like, what actually helps convert this? To go back to your donkey analogy, how do we leverage a donkey versus a horse? How do we make this real? And what do you know that works there?
Well, I really believe that in knowledge work, which is what we're all in, let's be very real about that. We are knowledge workers, even though we like to pick locks and do physical pen testing sometimes and things like that. We're knowledge workers. Ultimately, we're paid for our brain. And that means that your point of view and your opinion is the most valuable thing that you have to contribute in your role. And you have to find ways to make that work for you. And I think, and so in my experience, bringing in majorly diverse points of view and diverse opinions and diverse experiences is what really helps us cover every base when we talk about security. And to me, I think there is certainly a selfish aspect to it where I want to have the most security angles covered that I possibly can. And much of that comes from a diversity of experience and a diversity of point of view. I have also said many times that the reason many of us are successful in this industry is because we've weaponized our anxiety. And I've found that people from different backgrounds and different experiences have different kinds of anxiety that they bring to bear that we can then secure. And I think that that's part of the unique personality in the industry is a sense of professional worry, right? We're looking at a network diagram and saying, is there egress filtering? What? I don't like this. This is free. I don't like this. How is this? This is not good. Or looking at a piece of code or looking at a PCAP. I don't like this. And that intense intuition is part of what makes us successful. And having as many different facets of that as we can, I think is what will get us further into security posture at organizations. So it really, to me, is a matter of getting the diverse points of view and the diverse types of anxieties and the diverse types of worry to bring their opinions into the circle and allow those to be chased down. That's kind of where I see it for me.
I love that. I think it's tangible. I think it's pragmatic, and I think it makes a ton of sense. And I love what you're describing us as professional warriors, because I think that's absolutely right. And if we can just be better at that, we'll be better at what we do. All right. So last question. I know, no one ever likes to talk about their age or how long they've been around, but you and I have both been really lucky to be doing this type of work for quite a while, and we've learned things and seen things. And as it kind of started, the very first one of these recordings that we had with Wendy Whitmore, we kind of stumbled into a discussion about how different things are moving forward. And it's really become kind of the way I prefer to end each of these is, as someone that has a long and storied career in the space, has seen a lot of the different edges of cybersecurity. If you look forward, are you more optimistic or pessimistic about where we're at compared to where we were before?
I'm definitely optimistic. I'm always an optimist. And I'm pretty much always in a good mood. And that has allowed me to survive in this industry for almost 20 years. So I think that you have to be an optimist, right? You have to feel that what you're doing is chipping away a little bit every day at your attack surface or at threat actors' capabilities, or slightly improving the security posture of the organization, improving the security knowledge of the group of people that you're responsible for securing, whatever that may be. So I'm definitely optimistic looking to the future. My concern, as I kind of spoke about earlier, is, do we have the attitude? Like, do we have the right tones and personalities and levels of cynicism in the industry and in our practitioners to be able to go forward in a way that's healthy and sustainable? Almost anything is obtainable. Can we be sustainable in the way that we work and the things that we're doing? And I think that's going to be the key, is not creativity or technology or smarts or incredible reverse engineers. We have a lot of that. And what we don't have, we can learn and make. Do we have the attitude and the vibes? That's going to be harder. And that's a responsibility that all of us have to have for ourselves, as well as for like the security community and the organizations where we work.
I think that's really exciting to hear that you're optimistic, having seen all the things that you've seen and you owning a lot of strategy at Microsoft and where that's going. I'm very much with you. I'm very optimistic because it's very easy to be pessimistic. And I think a lot of individual days can be. There's a lot of hard days in this work, but I have yet to see an issue where a bunch of people just didn't jump in to try to solve it and really want to solve it. And I think the thing that I am most optimistic about is, I've heard for years and years and years, the attackers only got to get lucky once. Defenders have to get lucky every single time, or there's more bad guys than there are defenders. And I think that's all wrong, actually. There's far more on the defender side. There's far more on the security side. And I think we're getting better at understanding and leveraging that. And I think, to steal your line, if we can figure that out, if we can get the vibes right, this is not a fair fight at all. And I think we are starting to understand that.
I think too, I totally agree with you. And I think too, there's an element to it of that I've tried to adopt in my own attitude, which is something terrible, like an incident or, oh no, a big mistake. Take the time, whether that's 30 seconds or an hour, to go, oh God, this is bad. This is really bad. This is terrible. And then decide that you're done wallowing and say, all right, let's go. Okay. And I take the attitude of, oh no, that's terrible. Oh God, what are we going to do? Let's go. Like, I try to get upset, laugh, and then act. And if you can kind of get your mind into that mindset of acknowledge it's terrible, acknowledge it's comedic, acknowledge it's time to take action, it really can change the way that you look at things and make you feel much more ready to take on whatever may happen. And I hope people can kind of adopt that idea of like, it's terrible, it's kind of funny, and let's go.
Yep, I love that, because I think that's exactly how it is. And I think that's going to help get us through a lot of tough days. Well, Sherrod, I really love this conversation. I was really looking forward to this, and it has lived up to my expectations. I just want to extend my personal thanks for you joining us and a professional thanks for what Microsoft Security is working at and the strategy. And I think those things are really going to make things a lot easier for a lot of other organizations. So I really appreciate your time on both fronts.
All right, thanks, Steve. Let's secure 2024. Here we go.
One way to find out.